Welcome to Speak for Yourself. I'm Joy Taylor. Marcellus Wiley and Emmanuel Acho are off today. I'm with Fox Sports analyst Rick Bucher. It's time for our top story, brought to you by Popeye's new 8-piece nuggets. Baker Mayfield had a Monday night he'd like to forget. He threw 2 interceptions and was sacked 9 times in the loss to the Steelers. After the game, he confirmed he'll have surgery this offseason on his torn labrum, which will start soon, since Kevin Stefanski said earlier today he will not play in their last game on Sunday. We've got to bring in Fox NFL analyst Bucky Brooks. But Rick, is Baker Mayfield the future of the Browns?
Oh, no, it's not. He's not, Joy. And I felt like last night was such a sad game because we weren't just saying farewell to one quarterback. It felt like we were saying farewell to 2. And it was very sentimental and emotional with Big Ben, that the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fans didn't want to see him go. But I didn't get that feeling from the Cleveland Browns. I got the feeling like Baker is done with the Browns, and the Browns are done with Baker. And yes, I feel as if they're dressing it up now that he's going to have surgery on the torn labrum on his non-throwing shoulder. But it appeared as if Baker came to that conclusion on his own, that he was going to have that done sooner rather than later, not play in the last regular season game, and said, in effect, that I have to start looking out for myself. He must have felt that way during the game, because sacked 9 times, rookie right tackle, one-on-one with T.J. Watt for most of the night. I mean, Kevin Stefanski basically seemed to be indifferent about keeping Baker Mayfield upright. And Baker looked like he wasn't trying to keep plays alive. He looked like he was trying to keep himself alive during this game. So, no, I just don't see any way in which Kevin Stefanski or anybody with the Cleveland Browns can look Jarvis Landry in the eyes, can look Nick Chubb in the eyes, Myles Garrett, and say, "Hey, you know what? We're bringing Baker back. We're gonna run it back. We're gonna do it again," because it's been demonstrated. This is not working. This is not the quarterback that takes you where the Cleveland Browns want to go. And I get the sense that Baker Mayfield feels the same. Feels as if in some ways that he's been betrayed by this franchise. I wouldn't agree with that, but I get the sense that that's his feeling. So I fully expect that there's going to be a mutual parting of ways this offseason.
Is Baker Mayfield the future of the Browns? No. I admittedly was a big Baker supporter. I love personalities. I don't like people to be stuck in a box. And he brought a little something different. I also think that, despite all of the turmoil, which we will get into in a moment, he did stabilize the franchise in some way and made them relevant and competitive, which historically has not been the case. But like any intelligent, brilliant woman who gets new information, I update my opinion, and that's where I am now. Last night was rough, but last night wasn't terribly surprising. It's time to move on. There's been too much that's happened, and we have too much evidence that Baker is not able to elevate this team. I'm fully aware, as we all are, that Baker has been banged up. That wasn't new information we got last night after the game was over from him either. We can see that he's banged up. We've talked about it all year. The problem is, if you're too injured to play, meaning you being on the field is a liability to your team, then you shouldn't be out there. You should not be playing. So if he was too hurt to play at a level that was going to elevate this team, then he should have ended the season and had surgery. That's what this league is. If you're on the field, you are expected to perform at the level of a starting quarterback. We're seeing other quarterbacks. We've seen other quarterbacks last year play through injuries and elevate their team. So he's hurting the team at this point. Now, listen, again, he did stabilize them, but we have to look at what's happened since Baker's got there. So I'm going to throw a lot at you really quickly, but stay with me because the evidence is very clear. Baker has had incident after incident after incident with the Cleveland Browns, going back to his first coach out of the 4 that he's had since he's been there, Hugh Jackson. Remember the incident with him and Hugh Jackson in December of 2018. Then they hired Freddie Kitchens, which no one in the league could figure out what that move was about other than just appeasing Baker Mayfield. Then Baker calls out Duke Johnson. Then Baker calls out the training staff, the medical staff. Then Odell. then the incident with Odell's father, then his wife posts sharing about fans talking about Baker's toughness and how he is tougher than the rest of the team and the rest of the team needs to keep up. It's incident after incident after incident. And we give quarterbacks credits for, even if they're struggling, just throwing some water on the fires. Get up there and say the right thing. Make things lubricated, not agitated. And Baker, because of Baker's personality, has not shown the ability to do that. So on top of the fact that he is 6-8 this season, will finish with a losing record for the third time in his 4 career seasons. He has more interceptions than touchdown passes over his last 6 starts. He's struggling despite the fact that Cleveland has a top 4 rushing offense and top 6 defense this year. He has 56 interceptions since entering the league in 2018. That is a league high. There's all this stuff. It's just piling and piling and piling. Can he go somewhere else and have some success? Maybe, but it just feels like Cleveland's just trying to force this circle into a square hole, and it's not working. And the evidence is showing that that is so.
Look, I mean, the evidence is there, and Baker hasn't played well, but it doesn't mean that this is necessarily a breakup this offseason. What the Browns can do is they can slow play this one until they find a better quarterback for their team, meaning fifth-year option, he can play on that. They have the luxury of using a franchise tag or 2 to keep him in the fold. So that gives them at least 3 years to find a quarterback that can elevate this team. That said, Baker Mayfield has stabilized the team and stabilized the position. As bad as he's been able to play winning football when the other stuff around him has been good. When the running game is going with Nick Chubb, when the offensive line is intact, when the defense plays well, and they don't ask Baker Mayfield to do a lot, the Cleveland Browns win games. I think the bigger thing can be, does Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, after this year, know exactly where Baker Mayfield is? And can they, if they elect to re-sign him, slot him in at a number that really qualifies him for what he is? It compensates him for being a mid to low-level starter, someone who has helped the franchise, but we're not going to overpay for what Baker is because we've seen it. We've talked about it. Trucks and trailers. Either you carry the team or the team carries you. The team is carrying Baker Mayfield, so we just need to compensate him at that level. If we do that, then we can go forward with Baker Mayfield. If not, then we have to find another quarterback.
Joy, I appreciate that you brought receipts. My goodness, you brought receipts. Let's add another one. First player this season to have 10 consecutive incompletions. Was able to add that to the resume last night. But, Bucky, I can't help but feel you're being coy here. You're putting on your front office executive hat here and saying, well, you know, financially, if we can get the number right, we could still, he could be a serviceable quarterback for this team. Because, and the question being, do they know who Baker Mayfield is at this point? Bucky, come on. You know who Baker Mayfield is at this point. Don't try to tell me that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry don't know that, having had a front row seat. If you don't know, just tell me right now that you don't know, that you still want to see more because you think Baker Mayfield can be something other than what we've seen so far. Is that what you're saying? I need a little bit more time. I need this Baker to bake a little longer before I'm aware of exactly what kind of cake he is.
I think Baker Mayfield is the same as Jimmy Garoppolo, is the same as Kirk Cousins, is the same as Derek Carr, and all those guys. And so what you're doing is, okay, if I get rid of Baker, who am I bringing in? And then am I guaranteed that the player that I bring in is going to be an upgrade? If I'm not guaranteed, then I got to continue to go down this road with Baker Mayfield until I can find that special somebody. And so we just got to continue to keep hanging out with Baker Mayfield until we find better. That's why we put him on a series of options and one-year deals until we can find the upgrade. We don't necessarily have the long-term commitment to Baker Mayfield, but we got to keep it because we do win games when Baker Mayfield is our quarterback.
Oh, you don't win enough games, Bucky. And here's the thing. It's not just the numbers. If I step back and I look at the analytics and I looked at the success of the Browns and I looked at Baker's numbers, although they're pretty bad. I mean, they're down in the Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold category of efficiency when it comes. And I can give those guys an excuse because they just joined the league. That's not where I am with Baker. So there's that. But the other aspect is the feeling. I mean, that laundry list of things that Joy gave us. It's not as if Baker is excited about being a Cleveland Brown. It's not as if the Cleveland Browns have said, hey, it's just injuries and we got to find a way to make this work. Like, there have been a ton of issues with Baker. And I can't help but feel this season in general and last night in particular. I don't know if you guys remember the last scene in Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks, mortally wounded. He's on the bridge. He's done. It's over. And here comes this German tank rolling directly at him. And Tom Hanks is there with like a hand pistol. That's all he's got left. And he's just kind of shooting it aimlessly, still trying to fight. That's what I saw. I mean, I saw Baker Mayfield like going and rather than stepping out of bounds, like trying to get an extra 2 yards on a run. Like, it's kind of demonstrating that I'm still a tough guy. I can still, it didn't feel courageous. It felt sad. It felt like I'm still trying to demonstrate that I can be that guy when I've got a whole season's worth, if not more, of evidence that you're not that guy. You're not going to be that carried you as a walk-on and all of that. At some point, the physical talent and the abilities, like the confidence and the attitude just can't carry the day. And I feel as if that's where we are with Baker Mayfield, and the Cleveland Browns know it. And so I'll go back to it. I said it. Like, you're going to bring him back, and you're going to look at Jarvis Landry, and you're going to look at Nick Chubb, and you're going to look at that team and say, yeah, this is our quarterback moving forward. After what they just went through, I couldn't do, Bucky, I don't care what the numbers say. I don't care what the salary cap says. I could not do that to my locker room.
Well, I'm just saying, like, maybe it's not their situation. Maybe it's not. Maybe Jarvis Landry isn't there, just like Odell Beckham isn't there. Maybe they get some guys that are Baker believers and forward with those guys.
Ooh.
Baker's brand is bigger than his play. We do have enough evidence of what Baker Mayfield is at this point. So I don't think any of us are advocating for Baker to get the bag. I don't know that anyone is advocating for Baker to get the bag. Baker's getting plenty of bags from the 50-11 commercials that he has. That's not the conversation here. It's about what are the Browns going to do as an organization. I think we all think that Andrew Berry is a good GM. Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year. They have the talents outside of Baker Mayfield. But we have years of a resume with Baker Mayfield. It's always, I'm waiting to see what you're talking about with Baker Mayfield. It's like a projection, right? Because the accomplishments are not there. We have one successful year with Baker Mayfield. 2020, 11-5, 26 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He is 18-25 with 66 passing touchdowns, 48 interceptions in his other 3 seasons, and a completion percentage of 64% in all 4 of his seasons in the NFL. We have the resume. You are what you put on the field. And the conversation about him being healthy or not is not something that we can really consider. People get banged up. This is the NFL. What are you able to overcome? Are you hurting your team by being out there, working through this and not getting the surgery? What else is there to prove with Baker Mayfield? We have the evidence on top of the constant issues, on top of the constant drama. What are the Browns trying to be? Because they've never been there before. So are they trying to be a winning organization? Are they trying to level up in a division, by the way, that now has Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and that Steelers defense? We'll see what they do at the quarterback position. But it's not like the Steelers have never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. So I don't expect that to be the trend moving forward. So this is what it's up to the Browns. Like, we have the evidence here. We know what Baker Mayfield is. Is there a level up here? He's got the Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Where is the level up that I keep being told about every single year? And by the way, speaking of receipts, Rick, I was the first voice, after years of defending Baker Mayfield, the first voice on his hater video this year. So yes, I will bring receipts.
There you go. There you go. But by the way, Bucky, you're acting as if the Cleveland Browns don't change out quarterbacks like they change out underwear. I mean, this is what they do. We're at a deli counter, number 32. We need their 32nd quarterback since 1999. What's the difficulty here? Baker is just the last in a long line of guys. Let's switch it out and keep it moving. Bucky, I feel as if you're being really coy here and just kind of laying back in the weeds and not saying what your heart really says, which is the Browns can't go forward with Baker Mayfield. Like, logistically, they can. But from an emotional standpoint, they can't start next season with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback.
So here's the issue. The issue is, who are you going to bring in to replace him? And so you can't draft one because this year's class doesn't have a marquee franchise quarterback player. When we look at the marketplace, I told you who could be on the marketplace. Jimmy Garoppolo and those guys. We can go back with Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, and some of those guys that have been dismissed and cast off. Are those guys guaranteed to be upgrades over Baker Mayfield? So if you're the Cleveland Browns, in a way, you're stuck. So you have him under contract. You have to at least entertain the possibility that Baker Mayfield is going to come back. Maybe you change the furniture, you rearrange the room, put some new pieces around him on the perimeter, and maybe that helps him become a better player. But I don't think you can lock yourself into, hey, we're going to have to move on without Baker Mayfield just because we don't want him to be our quarterback anymore because he played bad this year.
As a Steelers fan, I love everything you're saying,
I still can't believe you compared him to Jimmy G.
I love it. Coming up, Josh Allen and Mac Jones have their sights on the playoffs. We'll tell you if the Bills or Patriots are the bigger threat in the AFC. But first, Matthew Stafford is coming off a rough weekend. We'll tell you if he can be trusted in the playoffs. Next on Speak for Yourself. The Rams beat the Ravens Sunday, but Matthew Stafford's stats left some question marks. Stafford finished with 3 turnovers and now has 17 giveaways this season. The Rams are the number 2 seed in the NFC, but our very own Bucky Brooks tweeted during the game, at some point, we need to have a discussion about Matthew Stafford's turnover woes and how they could derail the Rams' title hopes. He's more talented than Jared Goff, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Rams have a better shot at the ring. So, Rick, can Stafford be trusted in the playoffs?
No. I love the power of Bucky Brooks, though, that he just puts out a tweet. We should have a discussion about this. Next thing you know, Speak for Yourself, we're having a discussion about this. No, we can't trust Matthew Stafford, or at least we have no reason, we have no basis for trusting Matthew Stafford in the postseason because he's had 3 games, total of 3 games, all with the Detroit Lions in the postseason. The last one 6 years ago, has never won one of those games. And we're asking him to be the quarterback of a team that's not just expected to win a game in the playoffs, something he's never done, but to actually go all the way to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. And so just based on his history, there is no reason to trust Matt Stafford. Now, if he was having a phenomenal season, if he was demonstrating without any reservation that the issues, the reason that he had never had any postseason success and had limited postseason exposure was because he was with the Detroit Lions, not because he's Matthew Stafford. If he was demonstrating all of that with the Rams in Los Angeles, I'd say, okay, there's at least a little bit of basis. The reason that Sean McVay got rid of Jared Goff and brought in Matt Stafford, that's being validated on some level. It's still only the regular season, but there's some understanding there. Sean McVay saw something, and it's coming to fruition. But we're not seeing that. We're not seeing a clutch quarterback. Yes, I know. 4th quarter, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But leads the league in pick sixes, has thrown them on a more consistent basis toward the end of the season than he did at the start. Like, all the numbers are suggesting that playing under the bright lights of LA and with the expectations that this team has is a little bit too much for Matt Stafford. Now, we're not to the playoffs yet. Things could change. I'll allow that caveat. But based on everything that we've seen, if it's should we trust him, I don't have any basis to trust him. But Bucky's the one who wanted to have this conversation. So maybe Bucky sees it a different way.
I mean, look, I don't know if I can necessarily trust him. I don't know if he's an upgrade over Jared Goff, and we won't really know until we get into the postseason. That said, the star power can enable Matthew Stafford to have success at the end of the season and in the postseason. The star power is legitimate. OBJ is a star. Cooper Kupp has become one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the game. You look at that defense, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, all those guys are stepping up. The only question mark that you have regarding the Rams is with Matthew Stafford going to show up in the postseason. I am worried about the pick sixes. I'm worried about the giveaways. I got the stuff right up under me. 17 giveaways, 11 interceptions since week 9. That's a problem. However, I am still saying that this is the only team that can knock off the Green Bay Packers because the talent is immense. I don't know. I'm worried about Stafford, but I'm not necessarily ready to dismiss the Rams as a viable contender because the talent is terrific.
I'm right there with you, Bucky. I'm worried about Stafford, but I'm not going to dismiss the Rams. What I am worried about is, are the Rams and all of their talents going to lose because of Matthew Stafford's mistakes? Which I have been talking about all season long. I've really been talking about this since Matthew Stafford came to LA because everyone was losing their minds and Sean McVay had those heart eye emoji things going on. And it was like this honeymoon phase with Matthew Stafford. But it's just always been this thing with Matthew Stafford that he's like a made man. Like I even get anxiety talking about him right now because I'm like, I don't know. Like everyone's got to like put a caveat with Matthew Stafford. Like, yeah, but he was in Detroit. Like, okay, but he was there a long time. He played with Hall of Famer. It's 0-3 in the playoffs in Detroit. And it's the same thing that's happening here in LA. Now, some of this might be that they're leaning a little bit too much into Matthew Stafford, and some of it might be he's doing too much. But either way, it's happening. And not all turnovers are created equal. For example, pick sixes are points for the other team. You can fumble the ball, you can push a little bit and throw an interception, and you're able to recover from it. Not pick sixes, because that's a point. That's 6 points for the other team. He does that the most. And the idea that he's like great in the fourth quarter, that's fine. But let's look at the games where he has had multiple turnovers and the outcomes of those. That's what's important to me. They lost to the Niners and the Titans. Those are the games where he had multiple interceptions this season. He's had 4 of them. One was to the Niners, one was to the Titans. They lost, and that was in that November losing streak. He's also had multiple interceptions against the Vikings, who are not in the postseason, and the Ravens, who had a backup quarterback. So I think to Bucky's point, you can make some mistakes. But when you get to the postseason, you're not going to be able to dig yourself out of a 3-interception game. I don't want to hear about that. That's not how I want to win games. It's different to fall behind. To give someone like, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers a multiple touchdown lead because you are making mistakes, not because your defense failed, but because you are giving him extra possessions, that is concerning. Are they going to be be able to overcome that? That is my question. And I'm with you, Rick. There's no evidence up until this point. Now, Matthew Stafford can rewrite the book, but up until this point, there's no evidence that he is going to be trustable in the playoffs.
Here's the other troubling part. And because interceptions are not created equal. You know, there are tip balls, there is the receiver bobbled it, it's off his hands, whatever. With Matthew Stafford, that hasn't been the case. Like his interceptions, his giveaways are, what was he looking at? What was he thinking? And that's where I agree with you, Bucky, in terms of the talent that the Rams have. That on both sides of the ball, it's as good as anybody in the league. But my decision maker determines whether that talent is going to get the ball or not. And Matt Stafford is my decision maker, and that undercuts all of that talent. If I'm throwing pick sixes, then I'm putting my team behind the 8 ball right from the very start. I'm putting my defense at a disadvantage right from the start because they've got to play a different way. And I dare say that with the way he's been playing, if I'm on that defense, I'm thinking, hey, we're going to have to compensate somehow. We might need to gamble to get a pick six or get a turnover or force something because we know that our offense at this point has a tendency to do that. So with all of that, and for where the Rams' history is, like there's not this foundational, hey, we can bring him along. This is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bringing in an Antonio Brown and saying we can kind of shape him and bring him into our culture. That's not a Super Bowl culture yet. You might argue that they have Super Bowl talent, but what does Sean McVay have where he says, or Aaron Donald, or any of those pieces where they go, Matt, this is how we bring it along. This is how we get this done. They don't have that experience. And so it's really who's going to show Matt Stafford, this is how you be more consistent. This is how you play a little closer to the vest. Because regardless of what they have done schematically, he still keeps taking chances where you scratch your head and go, I have no idea why he threw the ball there. And that underlying, if you're going to go up against Aaron Rodgers or any number of teams even in the NFC, raises the question, will a Matt Stafford mistake ultimately undermine all of that talent that you have? And we've seen that happen during the regular season. You can be sure that it's going to happen in the playoffs.
Man, I don't know what happened to you guys. It's 2022. I feel like I'm the only one on the panel that made a New Year's resolution to be more positive. I'm going to be positive about Matthew Stafford. Look, I know he had 3 turnovers the other day, but then he came back and went 14 for 14 in the second half. He had his 42nd game-winning drive. He has 34 fourth-quarter comebacks. So he may mess it up, but he eventually fixes it. It's kind of like watching your favorite basketball player, Russell Westbrook. Westbrook is talented. He's going to turn it over. That's just a part of the deal. So Joy knows this. Joy knows I hate turnovers. She knows it. But I've grown comfortable understanding that, look, this is what Matthew Stafford does. He turns it over. He gives you a little, but then he brings it back. And so I'm just saying maybe he's getting rid of all of the turnovers during the regular season. So when we get into the postseason, we don't have to see it. Maybe he's just going through that part of it so he can get rid of all of that bad stuff, get rid of all the
just
bad juju.
Empty the bag.
So we can get to the postseason. Empty the bag. So now we can get to the playoffs and he can play the right way. It has to be that.
Wow.
I made a New Year's resolution to be more positive. So my positivity is saying that's what Matthew Stafford is doing. He's learning where he can toe the line so then he can get over the line and play the right way.
You're the reason we're talking about this. Your tweet questioning if we need to be worried is the reason we're talking about this. And no.
Thank you, Joy.
I know you don't like turnovers.
January 2nd.
Exactly. I know you don't like turnovers, Bucky. You don't like penalties. You don't like turnovers. You like nice, clean football. And my New Year's resolution, it's ain't no new year, new me. I'm remaining the same. I like to adjust. Okay, just a little bit. So I'm a realist, not an optimist, a realist. And ironically, my not New Year's resolution, but my New Year's intention is discipline, which perhaps Matthew Stafford could use a little more of when it comes to taking care of the ball. This is going to be a problem in the postseason when you're playing against high-level competition. We saw what he does when he turns the ball over multiple times against good teams. He can't dig his way out. To quote Rick Bucher, I can't give you credit for digging yourself out of a hole that you created. If your defense isn't playing well and that's why you're behind, that's one thing. But if you are turning the ball over at the rate in which Matthew Stafford is against a team that has a real one on the other side of the ball, that's going to be hard to overcome in the postseason, which is what your tweet was about, Bucky.
Yeah. My tweet was about that, but remember, my tweet happened early in the game when he was turning it over. I couldn't tweet anything at the end when he was making those remarkable throws. In the second half, after making those mistakes, he got it back. So look, we're doing what my desire was and what my intention was. Since you talk about setting intentions, my intention was to have a discussion. We're having a discussion about Matthew Stafford and how it could derail the title host. I just came to the conclusion that maybe it won't derail it because maybe he'll fix the problem before we get into the tournament.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. We have no evidence of that yet. Coming up, Big Ben might have played his final game at Heinz Field. We'll tell you what his legacy will be next on Speak for Yourself. Whoop. The Steelers stayed in the playoff hunt with a win over the Browns last night, but the bigger story was it's expected to be Ben Roethlisberger's final game at Heinz Field. Big Ben got a hero's send-off, and if he does retire, he will leave with 2 Super Bowl titles and 18 seasons in Pittsburgh. So, Bucky, what will Big Ben's legacy be?
Look, man, he'll go down as one of the best quarterbacks who have played in our league. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's on the top 10 list in a bunch of different passing categories. And he is kind of the epitome of what we talk about when we think about the big franchise quarterback. I think what gets lost is in watching the aging Ben Roethlisberger, we fail to remember what Ben Roethlisberger was like when he was a young guy that was running around, the gunslinger, the guy who could extend plays and make these magical plays on script and also off the script. Now he's kind of become the guy that's the stationary pocket passer. But what the league will remember is the guy that ran around. And never forget, Ben Roethlisberger came from Miami of Ohio, and he was drafted by the Steelers at a time in which, look, you had Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers in that same class. He came outside of a Power 5 conference, as we recognize now, had a lot of success. And I actually believe that his success as a big body playmaker coming from one of those non-traditional schools paved the way for guys like Josh Allen and others to kind of follow that path. So he'll go down as one of the best players that we've seen. He also will go down as a trailblazer for those that came outside of those traditional schools.
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I know this Steelers organization and this fan base very well and the energy around it and the standards that they have there. And watching last night, Ben Roethlisberger felt like the last old school quarterback. That's what it felt like to me watching Ben finish his career in Pittsburgh. We've moved into a new era of the position where we don't have a standard for what size you need to be, what skill sets you need to have, what you need to be best at. There's so many different types of quarterbacks and different kinds of styles, and all of the rules lean towards the offense. So there's so many different ways that you can construct a team now. We've kind of moved away from the big statue monster guy that can throw off defenders and sling it down the field. And that's what Ben was. He wasn't a finesse guy, but he was perfect for the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. He was perfect for his time, and he had a wildly successful career. Take the last few seasons, which have been bumpy, out, just ignore those, which were still winning seasons, by the way, because he has never quarterbacked a Steelers season that was a losing season. And that is the thing that is so remarkable about Big Ben to me, and such a reflection of the Steelers organization as a whole. That we can talk all about how he's aged and his body and what he didn't do in the offseason, but he has never quarterbacked a Steelers team that has had a losing season. They have not had a losing season since Mike Tomlin has been there. That is an incredible era. When you look around the league and look at some of the teams that we talk about having these rises, here's the Steelers every single year being competitive, being in the conversation. Did they underachieve some years? Absolutely. But when I look at what Ben's legacy is, he always felt like the city of Pittsburgh. He completely bought into what the Steelers are. He was a winner without question. When we talk about who's a winning quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger might be the epitome of what a winning quarterback is. Consistent there, maybe not perfect, a little clunky at times, a little bit of drama, a little bit of diva, not everything that we would want and perfect. But that's not what the Steelers are. That's not what Pittsburgh is. They don't aspire to be fancy. Get the job done. Be consistent. Show up to work. Buy in. And that's what Big Ben was to me. And watching last night, I felt like, you know what? I'm watching the old school go away. And it feels okay. It feels right. Aaron Rodgers might be in that same group, older, but he is not an old school quarterback, a traditional old school quarterback. Certainly not Tom Brady with the yoga and flexibility and avocado ice cream. He's an older guy, but he doesn't have that feel. And I think that's a great legacy on top of obviously 2 Super Bowl wins and 3 appearances and all of the wins and records that he has.
Well said, Joy. It did feel like there was an era ending with Ben, the Big Ben leaving. And to your point, it's, first of all, for me, big picture, not on the absolute top tier of quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, but clearly on that next tier with the Eli Mannings and some of the other guys that were certainly more highly touted when they were coming out of college. That said, what made Big Ben so unique for me is, number one, the physically toughest guy that I've ever seen play the position. Yeah, he ran around, Bucky, but he also took a lot of hits and still would stand there, take the hits, and throw from wherever he might be. Holds the record for most sacked quarterback ever as a result. Some of that is because of the last few years, but certainly he was on that track his entire career. And yet, to Joy's point, really captured the persona of Pittsburgh, which is, regardless of how you feel, whether you're hurt, you're banged up, you show up for work. Lunch pail, hard hat mentality, and embodied the persona of the Pittsburgh Steelers and that city. I dare say if you drew a caricature of what a Pittsburgh Steeler player should look like, that stubble-bearded face of Big Ben would be a perfect model for it. And I think that's why you saw so much love and adoration going both ways between Big Ben and that fan base as he was saying goodbye last night. So it really, I can't think of another quarterback in recent memory, not just with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but with the entire AFC North. And it may be because he used the Cincinnati Bengals as a punching bag for many years until this past season. But I feel as if, like, his presence in that entire division when he goes is going to be missed because he was that much of a presence in football in general, but sort of in the AFC North in particular.
Well, the ending of a Hall of Fame career for sure. And I agree with you. It's going to feel very different in this division without Ben Roethlisberger there. But they have a lot of youth in that division, a lot of talent in that division now. So what do you do next year? Bucky, what should the Steelers do to replace Big Ben?
Well, they got two guys already in the bullpen, and Mason Rudolph, who's on the contract, and Dwayne Haskins. And so based on how the Steelers typically operate, is next man up. They give one of those guys an opportunity to maybe get up under center, and maybe that's your starting quarterback in 2022. The other option will be the draft. The problem with the draft is I don't know if this class is as strong as previous classes. And so there may be an opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers to take a guy, but there's no guarantee that as a rookie, the guy that comes in is going to be better than Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins. And so I think you have to go back and remember how this played out in the preseason and how they really took a chance on Dwayne Haskins, put him on the field. He played well in some preseason games and those things. I think the Steelers are going to try and kick the tires on one of the guys that they currently have and see if one of those guys can be the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger while also keeping an eye towards the draft to see if they can find the next guy. Maybe in the first round, maybe later. But they certainly have to go with a young quarterback at the position going forward.
Oh, I disagree. I hope you're very wrong, Bucky. I'm rooting against everything you just said very strongly. This division isn't a division you can play around in anymore. We already talked about Baker Mayfield. If he's healthy, if he comes back, if everything's perfect, we know the Browns can be competitive. Joe Burrow is in the MVP conversation. Lamar Jackson was an MVP. He's going to come back healthy, and they're going to be at the top of the league again in Baltimore. So this isn't a division you can fall behind in. My frustration with the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point was that they were so stagnant in having a replacement plan for Ben Roethlisberger, because I don't think that Mason Rudolph is it. And I don't think that's it because we saw what Mason Rudolph did with this team when Ben Roethlisberger was hurt. Yeah, they have a winning season because Mike Tomlin is there. But Mason Rudolph is not the future of this team. I don't know if Dwayne Haskins is. I don't think we've seen enough from him. But I don't feel great about it. We haven't heard a whole lot about it. We saw what he did in Washington. Do we know if he's a franchise quarterback? This isn't a situation where you can just mail it in and kick the tires is not going to make me enthused about the offseason. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously the dream would be Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay and comes to Pittsburgh, right? But you can't count on that. I don't think Russell Wilson is even an option. Why would he leave Seattle for the Pittsburgh Steelers? If he's going to leave, I think he's going to go somewhere like the Saints or New York. He's going to go to a bigger market. So I don't even think the Pittsburgh's on the board for that. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe it's a fantasy, but you can't count on that. I would go out and get a mid-level starting quarterback stay competitive this year and wait and see what's in the draft next year. And then next year, trade what you need to move up and get a quarterback that you feel good about if you don't like anyone in this draft. Obviously, Kenny Pickett constantly comes up in the conversation. But look, if the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't in on Kenny Pickett, there's a reason why, because he's in the building with them. There's no team in the league that's going to know Kenny Pickett more than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I don't think that you can take a risk on the rookie, and kicking the tires with Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins does not make me feel good about the Steelers' future next year.
Okay, wait a minute. So aren't you mad at the Green Bay Packers because they took a heir apparent for Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love?
No.
The Pittsburgh Steelers
No.
taking somebody?
No.
Roethlisberger?
No. I'm not mad at them for taking Jordan Love. I'm mad at them for trading up to get Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers was still Aaron Rodgers. A little bit of the deterioration, if you want to call it that. He's going to win 2 MVPs since, so I didn't see the rust, but apparently somebody did. What my issue with the Green Bay Packers did was they traded up to get Jordan Love without talking to Aaron Rodgers about it. Ben Roethlisberger was a whole injured. He was injured. We got to see the whole team, the season without Ben Roethlisberger, and evaluate Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. So that's not the same thing. Like, it was the ends for Ben Roethlisberger. We all saw this coming. It was a slow drip, but we're here. It wasn't the end for Aaron Rodgers, which we are clearly seeing now. So I didn't like the way that they handled it. Taking Jordan Love was fine if Aaron Rodgers was okay with it, which he clearly wasn't.
Fair
right.
with all of that. But I've decided that I'm going to take Bucky's lead when it comes to positivity. Bucky, what happened? What happened suddenly? It's still January 2022, and now suddenly you're so negative about the draft and the talent and the possibility of finding a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I see this actually as an opportunity to go get someone, because they're not likely to have to move up in the draft in order to get a quarterback. They're going to have their choice of a number of different guys. It's going to be a bit of a gamble. I dare say that if they are in on Kenny Pickett, I certainly wouldn't want to be advertising that if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it's not as if I'm going to have a top pick in the draft. So I would keep that under wraps. But the Steelers as a whole right now have a lot to improve on and fix in order to stay in the mix in the AFC North and in the NFL in general. It's not just replacing the quarterback. So whether they have a placeholder there, whether they give Rudolph a shot, whether they give Haskins a shot, they've got a lot of other pieces that they need to improve on. And presumably going to do that at least in part through the draft. So the idea that you can take a flyer on a quarterback and you don't need to trade up and trade assets in order to get up into the top 5, top 10 in order to get one, I believe is actually an opportunity, whether it's Kenny Pickett or somebody else. So look, this is the biggest difficulty when it comes to the Steelers and trying to replace Big Ben Roethlisberger, is the legacy that you are following, right, is so enormous. Anybody coming in is not going to be able to live up to that. And right now, they have Najee Harris and not a whole lot else. So I think the most important thing right now is to temper expectations as far as what the Steelers are going to be, at least for a season. This is going to be a reset season for them. I wouldn't worry about competing with the Bengals and the Ravens right now for where they are.
Oh, no, I'm always worried about that. But that's why I like the idea of bringing in a veteran, because that's what you saw for that year after Tom Brady in New England. That's what we've seen for the Saints in New Orleans, is that the expectations are not going to be the same because we know what those veterans are. If you bring in a rookie, now it's time to start legacy building, and that's a lot of pressure. Coming up, the AFC East is still up for grabs. We'll ask you if the Bills or the Patriots are the bigger threat in the conference next on Speak for Yourself. We're heading into the final week of the regular season, and the AFC East crown is still up for grabs. The Bills and Patriots are both 10-6, but Buffalo can clinch the division with a win Sunday against the Jets or a Patriots loss to Miami. So, Rick, who is the bigger threat in the AFC, the Bills or the Patriots?
I am going to go with the New England Patriots, and it's largely because of what we think of when we say a threat. And I'm going to give you the exact dictionary definition of threat. It's an intention to inflict pain, injury, or damage in retribution for something done or not done. And that's why I believe that Bill Belichick is the biggest threat in the AFC, because there was something that was done last year. It was suggested that Tom Brady can win without Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick can't win without Tom Brady. And I look at the team that Bill has composed and what they've been able to do and how he's developed them over the course of the season. And yes, while the Bills, rating-wise, pure talent-wise, the names, everything would suggest that the Bills are the bigger threat. They've got the greater postseason experience. I am not betting against Bill Belichick. You said it before, Joy. You're not betting against Tom Brady. I'm not betting against Bill Belichick, having dealt himself the hand that he wanted and developed it as the season has gone on. And on the flip side, I just watched Josh Allen have the worst game of his NFL career. 2 weeks away from the playoffs, Josh Allen had not the worst game of the season, the worst game of his career. And it has been a reflection of the Josh Allen that I have seen this year. I thought he would take another step forward, as he did last year. He has taken a step back. I don't know what's going on with him, but he has been inconsistent as hell. Inconsistency, much like with Matt Stafford, scares me when we talk about the postseason. I just look at Bill Belichick and his history, and more important, his motivation, and I'm going to go with Belichick and the Patriots over the Bills and Josh Allen.
Make a lot of good points, Rick. You do, but I have to go with the Bills, and the reason for that is Josh Allen. I don't doubt Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick is not the one out there playing the quarterback position. Mac Jones is, and Mac Jones is a rookie, and we've seen what's happened with Mac Jones when he has to play from behind, and we know he does not have a whole lot of big play potential. I'm with you. The Bills make me very, very nervous. Josh Allen has to be great. He is basically their run game. But when he is great, he is better than Mac Jones considerably. He is a star, and he has that big play potential. And in the postseason, he has some experience. So when it comes down to it, when we're talking about team comparisons, they both have a good defense. Obviously, Bill Belichick is the better coach because he's the better coach no matter who is on the other side of the field. But Mac Jones is the one on the field. And we have seen him, I don't know if it's called a rookie wall, but we've seen people put a little more pressure on him and the mistakes that he's able to make. And he is not the one who's going to elevate them in the postseason. It's going to be Belichick. It's going to be the defense. And that's what makes me lean towards the Bills. I'm just leaning towards the Bills because it is still Bill Belichick, to Rick's point. But Josh Allen can be remarkable. And if he is remarkable in the playoffs, they're the team to be worried about in the AFC East.
This is the easy one for me. This is all about Bill Belichick. This is an opportunity to get back at
Come home, Bucky. Come home.
From last year. This is everybody that was talking trash and kikiing at his demise when he had Cam Newton playing quarterback. It is now the payback tour. And so the Patriots have been the most consistent of the two teams throughout the season. He's developed this team into the point where they still are a valuable option to win the division. And if they get into the tournament, let's be honest, no one wants to be matched up with the Patriots. And it may not be because of their personnel, but it's because of the tactical acumen that Bill Belichick has. When you won it 6 times and been a part of 2 other Super Bowl champions, you understand how to get it done. That experience has led to expertise, and that is why, to me, the Patriots are the bigger threat. They're the bigger threat to all of these teams because they still have enough veterans on the squad who know how to win it, who won it, and Bill Belichick certainly has a game plan and a blueprint to be able to get it done.
I'm having an out-of-body experience right now because Bucky and I agree on something. It feels good. I can't lie. It feels good. That said, Joy, I agree with you in terms of talent, pure talent. Josh Allen, arm, athleticism, all of that. He has it over Mac Jones. But if I look at the efficiency of the two particularly this season, Mac Jones has it on him. He has the higher completion percentage. Josh Allen hasn't had a single fourth quarter comeback or game-winning drive this season. Mac Jones has had one of both. And what I really appreciate about Mac Jones, and I think some of what we're talking about in terms of conservative, not making big plays, is that's the way Bill Belichick wants to utilize him. He wants to lean on his defense, and he just wants to be mistake-free offensively. Let's get what we get, but more than anything, let's not make things more difficult on our defense than they have to be. And Mac Jones has been more than willing to take that role. Any quarterback of any stripe comes into the league and is perfectly content to only throw 3 passes in a game. You know he's down with the game plan and with whatever his head coach wants to do. And I think that is the magic piece of what Bill Belichick has built, which is, once again, he has a group of players, much like Tom Brady at the beginning, who are willing to do whatever it is that Bill wants them to do on a given Sunday. It may be your Sunday, and you're going to get a lot of touches. It may not be your Sunday, and you're going to be nothing but a decoy. And he has the ability to simply utilize his roster to the utmost without having to worry about egos or taking care of somebody and what their expectations are based on what they're getting paid or what their brand and their history has been. And that's what I love. That's what I believe makes this team, this Patriots team, so dangerous, on top of just the element that, as Bucky said, it's a payback tour. Like, get me in the show. I wasn't in the show last year. Like, get me there and let me show you what I can do when I have the opportunity to scheme and game plan for a particular opponent.
Yeah, my fear isn't Bill Belichick. We know what Bill Belichick is going to do. He's going to have them the most prepared. He's going to have the best game plan. He's going to take away the thing that you do best. We know what Bill Belichick does. I'm talking about the kid. I'm talking about the rookie McCorkle. When everything's flying around and it's chaos and you're down and you 2 scores and you need to come back and it's playoff football, is he going to be able to make the big play to elevate the Patriots? I know what Bill Belichick's going to bring. My question is about McCorkle, and let me stop. My question is about Mac Jones, MJ10, and we're going to find out this postseason. Thank you for joining us, Bucky. Coming up, we'll answer the question everyone in the dog pound wants to know. Is Baker Mayfield a franchise quarterback? That's next on Speak for Yourself. The Browns lost to the Steelers last night, and a lot of eyes are on Baker Mayfield. He threw 2 interceptions and was sacked 9 times. The Browns were eliminated from the playoffs before the game even started. And Baker is now a game under 500 as a starter in his 4 seasons in the league. We've got to bring in Fox NFL analyst Greg Jennings. So, Greg, is Baker Mayfield a franchise quarterback?
Yes, he is, for the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns only, in my opinion. The reason why Baker Mayfield is a franchise quarterback is, let's not forget the history of the quarterback carousel that the Cleveland Browns has experienced prior to Baker's arrival. They weren't even in contention for winning a playoff game or getting to the playoffs for that matter. And so for us to now all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, Baker, the sky is falling. He set Cleveland on fire last year, and then this year it was a dud. Well, it wasn't just solely on Baker, but he decided to play on a torn labrum. That was his decision, as well as the organization's decision. They knew what they were getting. They understood who he was prior to him even lacing them up after agreeing to play with this injury. And even last year, like, it wasn't a Baker-centric situation in Cleveland. It's never been about Baker Mayfield. It's always been about the pieces around him. How can we best support this young quarterback talent so that he can be successful for us, so that we can then be successful as a team and an organization? That's why Baker Mayfield is, for the Cleveland Browns, a franchise quarterback.
Well, when you put it like that, Suppose it does make sense. That's why I've been defending Baker Mayfield for a long time, because the Browns have been completely dysfunctional and have had how many starting quarterbacks over the last 20 years? We've lost count. So he did stabilize the organization a little bit. He made them relevant and competitive and, had a nice season in 2020. But overall, Baker Mayfield has not been good. He has not put up the numbers that he needs to put up. He has not elevated the team. So it really becomes a question of what the Cleveland Browns want to be. We can go all over the bad numbers that Baker has had. But to me, there's two things here. One, this division is very competitive. You have the Steelers, never had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. You have Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. You have Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. So you can't just trot anyone out there. If you're going to be competitive in this division, you need to have a competent quarterback. Injuries aside, everyone's dealing with injuries. If you're too injured to be out there and it's preventing you from playing at the highest level, then you should not be on the field. You're not only hurting yourself, but you're also hurting the team. So I don't know who that's on, whether it's Baker Mayfield or whether it's the Browns organization, but somebody needed to make a decision to make him have this surgery, to ask him to have this surgery and not be on the field if he was that injured. If you're out there, you're what? Expected to play at the highest level. That's how this works. So do the Cleveland Browns want to continue being a 500 team, which is fine. It's okay. You'll be relevant, little conversations. I'm sure we'll have some more commercials and things like that. Or do you want to actually be competitive? Now, there's not a whole lot on the market, so what are you going to move on to? I just don't think when you're talking about a competitive organization that is capable of winning multiple playoff games and contending for a Super Bowl, Baker Mayfield is at the helm. And it's not just because of his play. Franchise quarterbacks are leaders. And it's been incident after incident after incident after irritation, after cut player, after Odell, after Instagram post with Baker Mayfield, that he is not a guy that's going to lead the organization in a nice, calm way when things go wrong. And things go wrong for everyone.
Yeah, Greg, I think we have a difference of opinion on what a franchise quarterback is or how we define it. Because you said he's a franchise quarterback in Cleveland, which was damning in itself to say, you know what, yeah, he's not a franchise quarterback anyplace else. But in Cleveland he is because, it's Cleveland. If I'm a Browns fan, I'm not happy with you right now, Greg Jennings. You're like, we got a grade on the curve. He's not a franchise quarterback in any place, not in the CFL, not in Saskatchewan, not any place, but in Cleveland he is. And yet you then said that their success wasn't based on Baker, but the talent around him. For me, a franchise quarterback is a cornerstone quarterback. It's somebody that you build around. It's somebody that complements all of the talent that you get. In fact, that you get talent that he is going to make better as opposed to that talent makes him better. When it's the latter, it's a case of a quarterback who's interchangeable. And that's where I believe that on the best of days, that's what Baker Mayfield is at this point. He's interchangeable. Like right now, completion percentage-wise, he's 28th in the league. That's down with the Trevor Lawrences and the Justin Fields. And I can give them an out because they've just entered the league. Or TD's thrown. He's with the Ryan Tannehills and Jared Goffs this season. Not guys that we've looked at and said have had particularly successful seasons. I look at everything that's transpired. I look at everything that Cleveland Browns have had. I look at, to Joy's point, all of the drama and turmoil and issues both on and off the field with Baker and the franchise. And I just don't see a guy that you build around going forward. Bucky was on earlier and was saying, well, from, fiscally, you get him at the right price, you keep him, you franchise tag him, like he's a placeholder. Placeholder is not franchise quarterback. And at this stage, I'm not even sure I would go that direction. There's just too much water under this bridge, dirty, muddy water between the two for me to think that Baker Mayfield's future is, forget long-term. I'd have a hard time seeing him back with the Browns next season, considering what their expectations were, and I would assume still are, based on the rest of the talent that they have with that franchise.
Okay, couple of things, Rick. And you make great points. Franchise quarterback, what is that? Is it a guy that you consider a cornerstone? I do as well. Let's go back a few years in Dallas, a guy by the name of Dak Prescott, who we all were saying, is he the franchise quarterback? Is he the guy? Does he need pieces around him to make him better? We all agreed and shook our heads in agreement. Yes, he does. Now it's all of a sudden Dak made those pieces better. And now the team is better. And the personnel and all of which was there that they added and tweaked a couple things here and there, and they improved. And Dak Prescott continued to progress and emerge as their guy. Can we not see that progression with Baker Mayfield if he does not get hurt this year, which is a big if? It's a part of the game. We can't rule it out, and we can't make excuses for him. But he played hurt this year. Last year, one of the reasons why the Cleveland Browns made it to the playoffs wasn't just solely because of Baker Mayfield, but he played a huge role not turning the ball over. He didn't throw 4 interceptions or 2 interceptions and get sacked 9 times. Like, he was able to do things to be effective enough to allow that team to have success. Secondly, I would say this. When you're talking about a franchise quarterback, the first thing that comes to mind is tears. Like, oh, my gosh, we got to find ourselves an Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, guys like that. Well, the real reality of that is you're not going to all be able to acquire that type of a talented quarterback. And so there are tiers to this. You mentioned a couple of guys that I would start to put Baker's Mayfield name in the pool with. That's Jared Goff. Is he a franchise guy? Because he's getting paid like a franchise guy. Ryan Tannehill, is he a franchise quarterback? Because he's getting paid like a franchise quarterback. But it's not just about them. It's about supporting what they can provide because they are consistent when you give them support around them. But without the support, you get an average quarterback, which most of the league has. There are very few rarities that we're seeing with the Joe Burrows and the Justin Herberts and all these young guys that are starting to make names for themselves and become that elite style quarterback. Not everyone can be elite. There's tiers. And so when you think about building a franchise, you got to find a stable cornerstone first.
I'm with you, Greg. You could do a lot worse than Baker Mayfield, and Cleveland certainly has. They've shown us that over the years. But Baker Mayfield has a really rough resume when you look at his 4 seasons in the NFL. Like, I don't want to get into the numbers again, but it ain't great. You can look it up for yourself. It's not great. So can they do worse? Absolutely. I'm with you. There's only one Patrick Mahomes. There's only one Aaron Rodgers. There's only one Tom Brady. Most quarterbacks need help. Even Tom Brady needs help. There's a dependent position. You need an offensive line. You need receivers. You need a solid defense. You need good coaching. It's a team game. So, yes. But are you winning in spite of your quarterback? Are you winning with your quarterback? Or is your quarterback elevating you? I would put the elevators in the category of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and Russell Wilson, guys that we have seen take their team to the next level in the biggest moments and the biggest stage. There's very few of them, Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and a few others. But because you could do worse doesn't mean you make him your franchise quarterback. Like, we've seen what Kirk Cousins is. He's going to be okay, but we don't talk about them as contenders. So when you sign up for a franchise quarterback that you have to elevate, you're essentially saying we're cool with just being okay. And maybe that's good enough for the Browns. Not good enough for the Steelers. So we'll see what they do. Coming up, Aaron Rodgers is an MVP favorite, but we'll tell you if his Packers are the best team in the NFL. Next on Speak for Yourself. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers clinched home field advantage Sunday and are the number 1 seed in the NFC. Green Bay has the best record in the NFL and also have the best odds to win the Super Bowl, according to Fox Bet Sportsbook. So, Greg, this is your former team. Are the Packers the best team in the NFL?
Yes, they are. They have the best record. They have the most consistent team out there. They cover one another offensively, defensively, special teams. They don't do anything spectacular, but they get it done. And when you think about the playoffs and what it's going to take, they do best. You have to take care of the football. When we look at all these teams, and not one team just stands out as a team that's electric both on offense, both on defense and special teams. But the Green Bay Packers have found a way to understand how to win with what they have. They've played a high level of defense. They've played a high level of offense. Is it top tier? On given Sundays, it is. Is it lowest tier? No, it is not. Some of the knocks that we've had on Green Bay in the past are they're not a physical football team. Well, this year, they decided to play more of a physical brand of football. And then you have quarterback play that's just simply not going to give the ball back to your opponent. So when I look at those things and a defense that can take the ball away and give it back to that quarterback that can put points on the board, they're the most complete team in the National Football League. They understand how to win, and at any point in the waning moments of the game, they can strike and they can win. And then they have a coach who's leading that team, who can make adjustments, who's not going to wait to make great decisions. He's going to make them throughout the course of a football game. So when I look at all those things, statistically, you're going to see a lot of teams, and you can throw names out there. But for me, when I watch the Green Bay Packers play, they play well as a team. And so that makes them the best team in the National Football League.
Yeah, I agree, Greg. And when you look at this particular season in the NFL, it's been pretty unique. Obviously, we're still dealing with COVID, which every team has been subject to, and a lot of injuries every team has been subject to. Aaron Rodgers is playing with an injury. We just talked about a guy in Baker Mayfield who has not been able to overcome his injuries despite being on the field. Aaron Rodgers is going to win another MVP while playing with a broken bone in his foot. So when I look at the Green Bay Packers, not only do they have the league MVP and have locked up the NFC, they've been doing it with whoever is on the field. You look at the pieces that they've been missing. Robert Tonyan, 8 games. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Randall Cobb, David Bakhtiari, Za'Darius Smith, Jair Alexander, Kevin King. And they started this season amidst a bunch of drama as well. I mean, it was like panic surrounding the Green Bay Packers. So they've been ultimately the most consistent team despite dealing with the issues that everyone's had to deal with this year, and have been very good at keeping care of the ball, as you mentioned, Greg. 10 giveaways this season, that's the fewest in the NFL. The only thing that gives me a little concern with the Green Bay Packers is their rushing defense. They're allowing 4.8 yards per carry. That's the second worst in the NFL. So if they do come up against a really physical running team that can keep Aaron Rodgers, that MVP, on the sideline, that would give me some concern. But overall, in a year where it's had a lot of parity, the Green Bay Packers have been the most consistent and have been able to overcome all the issues that everyone in the league has dealt with this year.
No, they're not the best team. Yes, they have the best record. Greg Jennings, I love the way you approach that. Do they have the best offense? No. Do they have the best defense? No. Do they have the best special teams? No. They just, on any given Sunday, somehow they've magically made it work out where they end up winning and they look like the better team on that given Sunday. But I'm going to go to, we're all kind of saying the same thing. We're just interpreting it in a different way. I'm really taking it by the definition of a team, which is across the board. And I can look at the Bills, the Cardinals, the Titans, the Cowboys. They all have better defenses than the Green Bay Packers and better scoring offenses. So if we're going to talk about balance, there's a number of teams that as a team are better, and a talent across the board are better. This is the one thing the Green Bay Packers have, and this is why I don't think they're the best team, but I do think they have the best chance of winning a Super Bowl. And it's because of one reason, and his name is Aaron Rodgers. It's the league MVP, the 2-time league MVP. He changes the whole equation. I don't think they have the best team. But to your point, Greg Jennings, having Aaron Rodgers means I'm always going to find a way at the end of a game. I always have that opportunity to win a game, regardless of how my defense is playing, regardless of what I have around me on offense, regardless of what my special teams is doing in giving me field position. Aaron Rodgers and the way that he's playing right now can make something magical out of all that. Now, there's people out there, maybe it's even you, Greg, who's going to say, well, Aaron Rodgers is part of the team. That means they're the best team. I'm taking it on a wider view because Aaron Rodgers can't just be Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has to be special for them to be the Green Bay Packers that they have been this season. And as for what they look like when he's not special, well, we saw that first game of the season. And we saw it when there was no Aaron Rodgers. Kansas City, week 9, 13-7 loss. All those other pieces, all that other good stuff you were talking about, Greg, that defense that rises to the occasion or the offense comes through or whatever, I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any Rodgers magic, and as a result, I didn't see the Packers as being a very formidable team. But with Aaron Rodgers, I'm all in. They're my favorite to win it this year. But that's because of Aaron Rodgers, not necessarily because collectively they have the best team.
Well, for me, it's not even about the rankings. Everybody can throw out these rankings. Look, I was on a team that was not supposed to get into the playoffs. Let everybody else tell it. In 2010-11, we get in, we're hot, we understood who we were, and we believed that we could be the best team that day against any given opponent. And that's all that matters. When we're talking about comparing stats, we're talking about a 18 weeks worth of statistical rankings that every Sunday varies. But when you match this team up against any team in the National Football League, they have a chance. And they have a better chance, more likely, than the other team that we're matching them up against, then they don't. So for me, that's what makes your team better. And you've alluded to it more than I need to. Aaron Rodgers is just the X factor. And when you have a guy who's done it, who's been there, who is as poised as poised can be, he's the definition of it, you have a chance to win at any level, in any league, even on game shows.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is going to be out there, and he's going to get a little bit of rest, too, which makes me feel even more comfortable about it. If you take this top quarterback off of all of these top teams, of course they're going to look different. He's the guy that touches the ball every play on the offense.
Right.
We know he's going to take care of it. We've seen him win at the highest level. And, every week he's going to come up with a little bit of drama to get him motivated. But he's been playing out of his mind.
No one looks more different, though, Joy.
All year.
No one looks more different than the Green Bay Packers without
But we don't
Aaron
have to
Rodgers.
evaluate it that way because he is going to be out there. And if he's out there, he's that dude. I feel good about it as them being the top team in the league right now. Coming up, LeBron wants to play with his son in the NBA. We have a lot to say about this next on Speak for Yourself. LeBron James turned 37 a few days ago and recently said playing in the NBA with his 17-year-old son, Brony, would be a, quote, unbelievable moment. The earliest Brony can make it to the NBA is the 2024-2025 season after 1 year of college where LeBron would be turning 40. So, Rick, do you love or hate LeBron saying he wants to play with Brony in the NBA?
I love that he wants to play with Brony. I hate that he said he wants to play with Brony in the NBA because the pressure it puts on Brony. I mean, let's be real. Brony is not, for those who may not be aware, like Brony in no way has the physical attributes of his dad. He's a 6'2", 180-pound combo guard. And when they call you a combo guard, it means you're not quite enough of a ball handler, playmaker to be a point guard, and you don't shoot it quite well enough to be a shooting guard. So you're a combo guard. He, from the scouts that I've talked to, is projected as a mid-major talent in college. He's 17 years old. Now, being LeBron James's dad, and the pressure and attention that comes with it's double-edged sword. There's certainly some advantages to it, certainly some disadvantages. But to say not like it would be cool, I'd love to do it, but LeBron said, I want to see this happen. Well, who has the most pressure on them now to make that happen? It's Bronny James. And based on his physical gifts, there's no guarantee that he can make good on that. So, look, I'm sure they've talked about it. Bronny may be good with it. Then again, he may not. Who knows, where he is on this. To want to do it, any father would enjoy doing that. To put it out there and say, I want to see this happen, now puts a whole lot on Bronny that as a 17-year-old kid who isn't guaranteed to have NBA level talent, I wouldn't do it to my kid. I'd want him to be whatever he wants to be, whatever his aspirations are. If it happens to be to follow in my footsteps or we get to do something together, I would love that. But I'm not going to demand that, or I'm not going to put that out in the world that I want to see that happen, because it basically takes the kid's choice out of it at this point, does it not?
No. Bronny can play at the highest level as long as he wants to, and if he makes it to the NBA, great. And that's all LeBron is saying. This is a family business. So, of course, he's going to say he wants to play with his son. His son plays basketball. LeBron is, in my opinion, the second greatest to ever do it. But one thing I don't do, because LeBron is so great, is compare anyone on earth to LeBron James. Similar to Tom Brady, I have no interest in having those conversations. It's LeBron James, and that's it. It's Tom Brady, and that's it. And the only one I'm having a conversation with when it comes to LeBron James is Michael Jordan, and I don't have that conversation either. So I don't have any pressure on Bronny. If Bronny makes it to the NBA, that's going to be an incredible story. If he doesn't, okay, he had a nice college career and enjoyed playing basketball like any high-level basketball player did that didn't make it to the NBA. I'm not going to think less of Bronny because he didn't become an NBA player, which we know is incredibly difficult to do. I have no expectations of Bronny whatsoever. I don't compare anyone to LeBron James, and I certainly don't expect a high school player to be as great as his father right away. So even if he did make it to the NBA, I'm not going to put any kind of pressure on Bronny to have this LeBron James-like career, because I don't put that kind of pressure on anyone who comes into the NBA, whether you're LeBron's son or not.
I'm with you, Joy. For me, I love every bit of it. Let me put this in perspective for you. My youngest is 9 years old. He's my only son. I am 38 years old. LeBron is 37 and Bronny is 17. Like, that is unreal to be able to even consider that as a potential. So given that that is a potential, yes, I want that. Like you said, Rick, any and every dad or any and every mom would want that experience to share the court with their son or daughter. Look at Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. And then when it happened in 1990, they go back to back Homer. What? I want that. I want to. That is you don't dream of things like that. That can only happen just like those are 1 in a million odds for something like that to happen. So for me, and then talking about the pressure that it puts on Bronny, I thought about that too. And then I thought to myself, well, pressure is really the attention that you give something. So if Bronny's focus is just being a high school baller and getting to the next level, he wants what his dad wants, but his attention has to be where it is. So the attention you give, oh man, I got to get to the NBA because my dad wants me to. He's not thinking that way. Its pressure is made by the attention you give something. And so with LeBron saying, I want to play with my son, guess what? If his son is not the best NCAA player and he jumps to the NBA, you think a team that LeBron is on isn't going to give him a tryout to see if he can just suit up with his dad? You better believe it's going to happen. So for me, I would say it. I would love to see it. I'm excited for it to be the future of what comes. We will see. LeBron has been applauded for his ability to take care of his body. And so that's what this is going to boil down to. Can he stay healthy? Can he continue this long tenured run?
Look, I would love to see it too. And I have no problem with LeBron, any father wanting to see that happen. I think it would be amazing. It would be a testament to LeBron James's longevity. But Joy Taylor, you are a good person. Have you looked at Twitter? You're familiar with Twitter. You're familiar with the public. There are
am I not a good person?
I'm getting to you, Greg Jennings. They're not making comparisons. They make comparisons every single damn day. Greg Jennings, you think no one is going to say, oh, yeah, your dad wanted you to get there and you were a mid-major or you weren't drafted and then you got to try out. That's because of your dad. Like, you don't think that Bronny's going to hear all of that as a result of this being out there? You damn well know he is. He's going to hear it every day from now until it does or doesn't happen. That is my only concern. Like, LeBron can do what he wants, and Brony can do what he wants. And I would love for that. Look, as I said, what a cool thing that would be to see in basketball, because to my knowledge, I don't know that we've ever seen it in basketball. Yet another first for LeBron James. I just don't like that he put it out there and said, I want to see this happen, because now there's one person that has to make that happen, and that's Bronny James. And I wouldn't put that on a 17-year-old.
What's the saying? Aim at the moon, land in the stars? Is that what it is? I could be butchering that. But why not? Why not set the expectations high? I'm not going to do something because Twitter might talk bad about me. Twitter talks bad about me every day. And you know what I do? The same thing I did yesterday. And you know what I'm going to do tomorrow? The same thing I did today. So Twitter can say what they want. If that's what they're into, let them talk.
That's you for you.
Okay, well, he has LeBron James as his
that's
father.
Not you for somebody else.
Who also gets talked about quite frequently, much more frequently than yours truly. And he's managed to navigate that for a very long time at the highest level, being the biggest superstar in the world. So he could give him a little bit of advice. Hey, turn your don't check your mentions, all right? Turn that filter on and don't look at it. So yes, I know what people are going to say about it. It's not going to be me because I'm a realistic, rational person. But yes, people will compare him to LeBron James. They are going to do that because that's his father. But to not aim for that goal because of what people might say, that I don't subscribe to. Who cares what people say? Do you? Coming up, trade rumors are flying in Seattle. So should Pete Carroll be worried about Russell Wilson wanting out? We'll answer that next on Speak for Yourself. There will be plenty of speculation this offseason after the Seahawks' worst season in over a decade. Adam Schefter reported it's possible the last home game with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson was this past Sunday. But Carroll isn't worried about the rumors, saying they are, quote, easy to dismiss. So, Greg, should Pete Carroll be worried about Russell Wilson wanting out?
Absolutely, he should be worried. Think about this. Last offseason, he was worried because Russell Wilson put out that he was unhappy. He was unhappy with his offensive line. He wanted more opportunities to pretty much cook as a quarterback in this league. And then for him to go into this season, have high expectations and hopes that this team was going to somehow put together a winning product, that doesn't happen. If that happens, I don't know if we're having this conversation. But because it didn't, and Pete Carroll is at the forefront of that, he's the head coach, he's making decisions. He's one of the reasons you point to, along with Russell Wilson, of why a team is not successful. Yes, you should be worried. Why? Because he's your alpha. He's the face of your franchise, has been for over a decade. He's the reason you will be successful if you are to be successful. So for me, you better pay attention to this. And you have a quarterback speaking out, talking about, I hope to be back, when he has all the cards in his hand. He has a no trade clause. So this is all on Russell Wilson. He's putting those little lures out there already going into the offseason so that teams can start ringing on his agent's phone number, giving little fillers out there. So, yes, you have to be mindful and concerned. And he should also be mindful of, will I even be the head coach going into next season with this team?
Yeah, he already talked about it. They were 12-4 last year, and we talked about it at the beginning of the season. Why would that not be a conversation now when they're 6-10? So it'll be like at least 50% more serious about it. Like, they had a winning season last year, and he was talking about leaving. So, of course, this should be a concern. Russell Wilson is not a complacent guy. We know he is a guy that takes his career very seriously. He's not just kicking it in the offseason. He's always posting workout videos. Like, he's somebody who wants you to know he's all in on his legacy in the NFL. He's not going to be cool with having 3 or 4 years of mismanagement or low expectations or a subpar roster.
That's right.
Whether that's on him because of his cap hit or not, this is where we are. So I don't think that there should be any sort of relaxing when it comes to the offseason in the Seahawks. They need to be very aggressive. I would not move Russell Wilson. I'm not moving off of a first ballot Hall of Famer in his prime unless he makes me. But he could very well make them. When level up is the anthem of your household, you should be concerned about whatever that man is thinking about.
All right. So a lot of this has to do with how the question is framed. Should Pete Wilson be worried about Pete Carroll, should he be worried about Russ wanting out? We're making the presumption that Russ wants out, and we don't have that definitive yet. Now, I'm going to say no. He's got nothing to worry about when it comes to Russ Wilson wanting out. One, unless the caveat is I'll stay if Pete is gone. Then he's got something to worry about, if that is the distinction. But other than that, we went through this with Aaron Rodgers last summer. What ended up happening? Aaron Rodgers remained with the Green Bay Packers because the Green Bay Packers wanted Aaron Rodgers to remain with the Green Bay Packers. Russ Wilson hinted, we had teams out there he might be interested in going to. If you don't do this, you do that. They did those things. And what happened? He stayed. So as of for next season, regardless of whether Russ Wilson wants out or not, the fact of the matter is the Seattle Seahawks, get to decide whether he stays or goes. And based on what Russell Wilson did last summer, where we got the hints and maybe he wants to go and maybe he's not happy, the fact is he never pushed that button. And I'm not sure that Russell Wilson, at the end of the day, with the concern that he has of his brand and his persona, wants to get into the mud and start slinging with the Seattle Seahawks. That wouldn't be good for the Russell Wilson brand. And that is a big concern with him. So, again, unless it's I am not going to come back or I want Pete out, then that's a different question and a different conversation. But Russell Wilson really doesn't have the wherewithal, regardless of what he wants to do, to decide where he's going to play next year. And because of that, if I'm Pete Carroll, I got a lot of things to worry about in terms of improving this team. Where Russell Wilson is going to play next season is not one of them.
Well, we'll be watching this offseason to see what happens. Coming up, Big Ben, Eli Manning, or Phillip Rivers. We'll tell you if the Steelers quarterback is the best from the 2004 draft class next on Speak for Yourself. It was an emotional night for Steeler Nation after a win that could be Ben Roethlisberger's last game at Heinz Field. Big Ben is part of one of the best quarterback draft classes ever in 2004 with Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. So let's take a look. The Steelers quarterback leads the group in all-time passing yards and is tied with Manning with 2 Super Bowl titles. So, Greg, is Ben the best quarterback from the 2004 draft class?
Yes. Yes, he's the one that you cannot question without doubt. You know he's a Hall of Famer. He's basically Phillip Rivers with 2 Super Bowls. So, I mean, he's the best. Look at the stats. It would be him, then Phillip, then Eli. Eli just happens to have the 2 Super Bowls. I'm going with Ben.
And I'm going to go with Eli because he not only has 2 Super Bowl wins, he's also got 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So while I think Big Ben wins the longevity and maybe even consistency over the course of his career, his highs were not quite as high as Eli's, and that's why I give him the edge.
Ben is the best from this draft class. It's very close, obviously. They all had great careers, but Ben had 2 Super Bowls and 3 appearances. He also never quarterbacked a losing season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had the longest career, although you could have argued that he maybe should have retired last year. But nevertheless, he is here, and they are still in playoff contention in the last week of the season. So I think Ben has proven to have the best career out of these 3, and they'll probably all be Hall of Famers. And I don't want to hear about Eli Manning.
You talk about the MVPs, the 2 MVPs in the Super Bowl. Anybody can have a great game and get MVP in that game.
I am from Pittsburgh, but it just means to keep it real, guys. That's it for us. We'll see you tomorrow and Speak for Yourself.